Midnight at the Old Mill.
In the quiet town of Ravenswood, the old mill looms over the landscape, a relic of an era long past. Abandoned for decades, it stands as a crumbling monument to mystery and fear. Townspeople avoid it, and children dare each other to touch its rusted doors. But only the bravest make it past sunset. The legend of the old mill goes back nearly 100 years. In the early 1900s, it was a thriving workplace, producing grain and textiles. But one evening, workers heard an eerie melody drifting through the machinery. They brushed it off as the wind, until one by one, workers began vanishing without a trace. By the time the police investigated, all that remained was a faint, continuous hum, like something was breathing within the walls. Now, the old mill is just a ghostly silhouette. But for those brave enough to visit at midnight, it's said that the air grows colder and a distant melody begins to play once again. The bravest souls sometimes claim to hear whispers, beckoning them further inside. "17-year-old Sarah and her friends decide to take on the dare to enter the old mill at midnight. It's Halloween, and the crisp autumn night sets the perfect tone for a spooky adventure. Armed with flashlights, a camera, and nerves of steel, they step through the rusty gates, laughter masking their unease. Inside, the air feels thick and stale, as though time has forgotten this place. Their footsteps echo across the cracked cement floor. Old machinery looms around them, casting twisted shadows that dance in the dim light. Sarah's friend Mark snickers.
Hear that, Sarah? Sounds like it's calling your name.
But Sarah doesn't laugh. She's focused on a distant hum, low and faint, pulsing from the depths of the mill. Her heart pounds, but she feels a strange urge pulling her further in. Each step draws her closer to a forgotten story, a dark truth hidden within the mill's shadowed walls. As they make their way deeper, Sarah starts to hear faint whispers, as if someone is right beside her. She swings her flashlight around, expecting to see one of her friends, but she's alone. The voices are indecipherable, just a low murmur filling the silence. Suddenly, she hears her name. It's soft, barely a whisper, but unmistakable.
Sarah.
Did you hear that?
She whispers, gripping her flashlight tightly. Her friends exchange uneasy glances. No one else heard it. They laugh it off, but Sarah can't shake the feeling that something is watching, waiting. They continue down a hallway, coming to a small room filled with dust-covered ledgers and rusted machinery. The whispers grow louder, becoming almost melodic, like a song just out of reach. Without thinking, Sarah steps into the room, drawn by an inexplicable compulsion. Her friends call after her, but she's already through the door. Inside the room, the whispers become clear. They're not just random sounds, they're voices, layered over one another, each pleading, begging, or warning. They tell stories of people lost, names she doesn't recognize, and among the cacophony, she hears her own name.
Sarah. Sarah, help us.
She turns to leave, only to find the door closed. Panic floods her veins as she pounds on it, calling for her friends. No one answers. The walls seem to close in, and the whispers grow louder, insistent. In the dim light, she sees faint outlines of faces on the walls, faces of people who were once real, their expressions twisted in fear. She backs away, horrified, until she trips on something lying on the floor. It's a ledger, its pages filled with the names of workers from the mill's early days. But some of the entries have been violently crossed out, and beside each name, a date. The date they disappeared. A chill runs down her spine as she realizes she's not the first to feel trapped here. The voices, the whispers, they're all the souls claimed by the mill. Determined not to join the mill's ghostly ranks, Sarah picks herself up, her hand trembling as she reaches for the door. Just as she pulls it open, the humming intensifies, drowning out her friends' voices. For a split second, she sees a figure, a shadowy form with hollow eyes watching her from across the room. It steps forward, reaching out, but Sarah breaks into a sprint, heart racing as she charges down the hallway. Her friends are waiting at the entrance, fear etched on their faces.
Sarah, where did you go?
Mark asks, but she doesn't have an answer. Her mind is consumed by the whispering voices, the faces, and the shadowy figure. As they flee the mill, the doors slam shut behind them, the hum fading into the night. For a moment, she almost thinks it was all in her head, but in her pocket, she feels a cold object. She pulls it out and stares, her breath catching. It's a rusted name tag, with her name scratched into the metal. Sarah returns home, shaken but alive. She tries to convince herself that it was just a hallucination, an overactive imagination fueled by fear. But deep down, she knows the truth. In the days that follow, she becomes restless, haunted by dreams of the mill. Every night, she hears the faint humming, even in her own room. And every night, the whispers call to her, urging her to return. One evening, she finds a letter slipped under her door. It's unsigned, written in shaky handwriting, and reads, "They're waiting for you, Sarah. The mill doesn't let anyone leave, not forever." Terrified, she stares at the letter, knowing her connection to the mill isn't over. The mill is patient, waiting for her to return, ready to claim another soul.